At the age of 35, Michael Jenkins found out that his wife Emily had cheated on him with his own boss, and then kicked him out of the house he built. But when he uncovered their plan to take over his company, Michael decided not to give up. Instead of tears, he has cold revenge, legal cunning, and one that will turn their lives upside down. Can he get back everything he's lost? Michael Jenkins, a 35-year-old software engineer from Seattle, pulled into the driveway of his Capitol Hill home earlier than expected. The October rain streaked across his windshield, but his mind was elsewhere, buzzing with ideas for a new adaptive coding project he'd been tinkering with for TechPulse, the mid-sized tech firm where he'd built his career over the past 7 years. He'd been away for a 3-day conference in Portland, and all he wanted was to surprise his wife, Emily, with takeout from their favorite-type place and a quiet night in. The house, a modern 2-story he designed and poured his soul into building, was his pride, a testament to years of hard work and late nights. He grabbed the takeout bag, stepped out into the drizzle, and fumbled with his keys. The living room lights glowed through the tall windows, a warm contrast to the gray evening. But as he pushed the door open, the warmth vanished. There, sprawled on the slate-gray sectional he'd spent weeks picking out, were Emily and his boss, Kevin Russell. Her auburn hair spilled over Kevin's shoulder, his hand resting casually on her thigh. They didn't even flinch at the sound of the door. Emily's hazel eyes, the ones Michael had once thought held the world, flicked up to meet his, cold, unapologetic. "You're early," she said, her voice flat like she was commenting on the weather. She didn't pull away from Kevin, didn't bother with excuses. Michael stood frozen, the takeout bag slipping slightly in his grip. The scent of pad thai mingled absurdly with the tension in the air. "What the hell is this?" he managed, his voice low, trembling with disbelief. Kevin shifted, sitting up straighter, his slick corporate smile creeping onto his face, the same one he used in boardroom meetings to charm investors. "Good to see you too, Mike. Maybe we should all sit down and—" "Don't," Michael cut him off, his gaze locked on Emily. "Explain. Now." She sighed, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear with infuriating calm. "We need to talk, Michael. This," she gestured vaguely between them. "It's been over for a while. I've filed for divorce. Kevin's been helping me sort things out." "Sort things out?" His laugh was bitter, hollow. "In my house? On my couch?" "It's our house," she snapped, her composure cracking just enough to reveal a flash of irritation. "Or it was. I want you to pack your stuff and go. Tonight." Michael's stomach dropped. The house wasn't just a building, it was his creation, every beam and window chosen with care. He'd spent weekends laying the hardwood floors, mornings sketching blueprints at the kitchen island. And now she was kicking him out? With Kevin, his boss, sitting there like he owned the place? "You're serious," he said, more to himself than to her. "Dead serious," Emily replied, standing now, crossing her arms. Kevin rose too, a silent show of solidarity. "I've already talked to a lawyer. You'll get the papers tomorrow. Just make this easy, okay?" "Easy." The word tasted like ash. He dropped the takeout bag onto the entry table, the thud echoing in the silence. 7 years, Em. 7 years, and you're throwing me out like trash." She didn't answer, just stared at him with that same detached look. Kevin cleared his throat, stepping forward. "Look, man, no hard feelings. It's just how things worked out. You're a good guy, Mike. You'll land on your feet." The condescension in Kevin's tone lit a fuse in Michael's chest. He clenched his fists, fighting the urge to lunge. But he wasn't that guy, not yet. Instead, he turned to Emily. "How long?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. "Does it matter?" "Yeah, it damn well does." 6 months, she admitted, shrugging like it was nothing. "Maybe more. 6 months. Half a year of lies, of her smiling at him over dinner while she was sneaking around with Kevin. And not just anyone, his boss, the guy who signed his paychecks, who'd patted him on the back last week for a job well done. The betrayal sliced deeper than he'd thought possible. "Fine," he said, his voice steady despite the storm inside. "I'll go. But this isn't over." Emily rolled her eyes. "Don't be dramatic. Just grab what you need and leave the keys." He didn't argue. Not then. He stormed upstairs, threw clothes and his laptop into a duffel bag, and grabbed a framed photo of them from their honeymoon in Hawaii, proof of a life that now felt like a lie. When he came back down, Kevin was pouring himself a glass of Michael's bourbon, smirking like he'd already won. Emily didn't even look up from her phone. Michael dropped the house keys on the counter with a clatter and walked out into the rain. As he climbed into his car, the rearview mirror caught the glow of the home he'd lost. But something else flickered inside him, not just pain, but a spark of resolve. They thought they'd broken him. They had no idea what was coming. Michael crashed on his buddy Tom's lumpy couch in a cramped Belltown apartment, the Seattle skyline a blurry haze through the rain-streaked window. It had been 3 days since Emily had kicked him out, and sleep was a distant memory, replaced by a gnawing mix of anger and disbelief. The divorce papers had arrived that morning, delivered to Tom's mailbox like a sucker punch. Emily wasn't just leaving him. She was claiming half of everything, including the house he'd built with his own hands. But something else gnawed at him. Kevin's smug face, the way he'd acted like he owned more than just Michael's bourbon that night. Tom, a scruffy network admin who'd known Michael since college, slid a beer across the coffee table. "You look like hell, man. You gotta eat something." "Not hungry," Michael muttered, staring at his phone. He'd been scrolling through old texts from Emily, searching for clues he'd missed. 6 months, she'd said. 6 months of lies. Tom leaned back, cracking his knuckles. "Heard something weird at work today. One of my guys does IT for TechPulse part-time. Said Kevin's been bragging about some game-changer project. Adaptive coding or whatever. Sounded a lot like that thing you've been obsessing over." Michael's head snapped up. "What?" "Yeah," said Kevin's pitching it to the board next week. "Big promotion vibes." Tom shrugged. "Thought you'd want to know." The words hit like a jolt of electricity. Michael's adaptive coding framework wasn't just a side project. It was his ticket to a senior role at TechPulse. He'd spent months refining it, a system that could optimize data processing for their cloud platform by 40%. He'd even bounced ideas off Emily late at night, her nodding along over glasses of wine. Had she fed it all to Kevin? "Give me your laptop," Michael said, his voice tight. Tom didn't argue, handing over a beat-up Dell. Michael logged into an old TechPulse email account he'd never deactivated, one tied to a forgotten team project. His main access was cut off, but this one still worked. He held his breath as the inbox loaded, half expecting it to be empty. It wasn't. There, buried among generic memos, was a thread between Kevin and Emily, forwarded from her personal Gmail. The subject line, "Next steps for MJ's code." MJ, Michael Jenkins. His heart pounded as he opened it. "Kevin looks solid. Legal says we can claim it as company IP if he's out of the picture. You sure he won't fight?" "Emily, he's too broken to care. Once the divorce is done, he's got no leverage. Push the pitch ASAP." "Kevin, you're a genius. Dinner tonight to celebrate?" "Emily, only if you bring the good wine." Michael's hand shook. It wasn't just an affair, they were stealing his work, his code, his future. Another email, dated 2 weeks ago, outlined a plan to restructure his role, HR jargon for firing him, while Kevin took credit for the project. Emily had signed off on it, her replies laced with a casual cruelty he hadn't thought her capable of. "They're screwing me twice," he whispered. Tom peered over his shoulder. "Holy crap, man. This is next-level shady. What are you gonna do?" Michael didn't answer right away. His mind raced, piecing it together. TechPulse owned IP developed on company time, sure, but he'd built the framework's core on his personal laptop, late nights after clocking out. He'd never uploaded it to their servers, never signed it over. If he could prove that, they had nothing. And if they thought he'd just roll over. "I need to check something," he said, grabbing his duffel bag. Inside was his old Lenovo, the one he'd used for the project. He powered it up, praying the files were still there. The screen flickered to life, and there they were, timestamps, commit logs, every line of code dated months before he'd even mentioned it to Emily. His proof. "They don't know what I've got," he said, a grim smile tugging at his lips. Tom raised an eyebrow. "You're scaring me a little, dude. What's the play?" Michael leaned back, the spark of resolve from that rainy night flaring into something sharper. They think I'm done, but I've got the originals and friends who hate Kevin as much as I do. He thought of Lisa, a former TechPulse dev who'd left after Kevin screwed her over on a promotion. She'd know how to dig deeper. He texted her, "Need a favor. Can you get me dirt on Kevin Russell?" Quietly. Her reply came fast. "Oh, I've been waiting for this. Give me 48 hours. Tom whistled. "You're going full rogue, huh?" "Not rogue," Michael corrected, his voice steady now. "Smart. They took my life. I'm taking it back, and then some." As the rain tapped against the window, Michael stared at the glowing screen, the first threads of a plan weaving together. Emily and Kevin thought they'd won. They'd underestimated him. Big mistake. Michael sat in a dimly lit coffee shop in Pioneer Square, the clatter of espresso machines drowning out the hum of his thoughts. It was day 5 since Emily had tossed him out, and the sting of betrayal had hardened into something colder. Focus. His personal laptop rested on the scratched wooden table, open to his code's development logs. Every timestamp was a weapon, proof that his adaptive framework belonged to him, not TechPulse. Across from him sat Lisa Carter, a wiry 32-year-old ex-colleague with a sharp grin and a grudge against Kevin Russell that matched his own. 2 years ago, that jerk took credit for my encryption patch, Lisa said, stirring her black coffee with more force than necessary. Got a fat bonus while I got a pat on the head and a team player mug. I quit the next month. So yeah, I'm in. What's the dirt you need? Michael slid a USB drive across the table. Anything on Kevin, emails, project files, anything shady. And check if he's been meeting with Emily beyond whatever they're calling it. I've got proof they're stealing my code, but I need more to bury them. Lisa pocketed the drive, her eyes glinting. I've still got backdoor access to their old servers. Idiots never patched it. Give me a day. You'll have gold. He nodded, then leaned in. One more thing. I'm taking this to Horizon Dynamics, TechPulse, biggest rival. If I can lock down my IP and partner with them, Kevin's pitch next week is dead. Lisa whistled low. Bold. You've got the balls for it. Horizon CEO Nadia Patel hates Kevin too. He screwed her over on a deal in 22. She'll eat this up. Michael's plan was taking shape, but it wasn't just about the code anymore. It was personal. Emily and Kevin thought he'd slink away, tail between his legs. Instead, he was building a trap they'd never see coming. Later that evening, he met Tom at a dive bar near the waterfront. The air smelled of stale beer and fish, but it was private, perfect for plotting. Tom slid into the booth, a manila folder in hand. Got something from a buddy in HR. Kevin's been pushing to restructure your team. Your termination's already in motion, effective after his pitch. They're cleaning house to cover their tracks. Michael skimmed the papers, memos, timelines, all stamped with Kevin's initials. They're betting I won't fight back. Yep, and Emily's in on it. There's an email here. She's getting a consultant gig with TechPulse post-divorce. Sweet deal for her. Tom smirked. They're cocky as hell. Cocky's good, Michael said, his voice low. Cocky makes mistakes. The next morning, he drove to Horizon Dynamics' sleek headquarters in Bellevue. Nadia Patel met him in a glass-walled office overlooking Lake Washington, her handshake firm and her gaze piercing. At 45, she had a reputation for ruthless precision and a soft spot for underdogs with good ideas. Heard you're on the outs with TechPulse, she said, cutting to the chase. What VE you got for me? Michael laid it out, the code, the timestamps, the betrayal. He showed her the emails between Kevin and Emily, the plan to claim his work. This framework's mine. I built it off hours on my own gear. TechPulse has no legal claim. I want to license it to you exclusively. Kevin's pitching it Monday, but without my IP, he's got nothing. Nadia leaned back, tapping a pen against her desk. I like the tech. I love the drama. Kevin's been a thorn in my side too long. What's your ask? Partnership. I bring the code, you back me with resources. We launch it before TechPulse recovers. And I want my team, 5 engineers Kevin's about to axe, brought on board. She studied him, then smiled, a shark smile. Deal. My legal team will lock this down by Friday. You've got guts, Jenkins. I respect that. Back at Tom's, Michael's phone buzzed. Lisa's text, jackpot. Kevin's been funneling company funds to a private account. $50K so far. Emily's name's on it too. Sending files now. He opened the attachments, bank records, internal memos, a photo of Kevin and Emily at a swanky restaurant. Timestamp 2 days ago. It was more than dirt, it was dynamite. Fraud, embezzlement, and a paper trail tying them together. He forwarded it to Nadia's legal team with a note, leverage. That night, he sat alone, staring at the horizon beyond Tom's window. The pieces were falling into place. Lisa's intel, Nadia's backing, his airtight proof. Kevin and Emily thought they'd outsmarted him, but they'd misjudged one thing. He wasn't broken. He was furious, and fury was a hell of a motivator. By Sunday, Horizon's lawyers had drafted an ironclad licensing agreement, and Michael had quietly reached out to his team, 5 loyal engineers blindsided by TechPulse restructuring. They were in, no hesitation. Monday's conference loomed. Kevin's big moment. Michael pictured his smug face, oblivious to the storm about to hit. They took my house, my wife, my work, he muttered, clenching his fist. I'm taking it all back, and then some. Monday morning dawned crisp and gray over Seattle, the TechPulse annual conference, buzzing in a downtown convention center. Michael adjusted his tie in the rearview mirror of his beat-up Honda, parked a block away. Inside his jacket pocket was a USB drive, his ace in the hole. Horizon Dynamics had finalized the licensing deal late Sunday, and Nadia Patel's team had prepped a press release set to drop at noon. But first, Michael wanted to see Kevin's face when the house of cards collapsed. He slipped into the auditorium through a side entrance, blending with a crowd of suits and techies. On stage, Kevin stood under bright lights, his PowerPoint slide blaring next-gen cloud optimization. The adaptive coding framework, Michael's framework, glowed in bold font, branded as TechPulse's latest innovation. Kevin's voice boomed with confidence. This is a game-changer, folks. Built in-house, ready to dominate the market. Michael's stomach twisted, but he stayed calm, spotting Lisa in the back row. She gave him a thumbs up. Her hacked files were ready. His team, 5 engineers who'd resigned that morning, sat nearby, their resignation letter already emailed to HR, CC to the board. The trap was set. Halfway through Kevin's pitch, Michael stood and walked to the Q&A. Mike heads turned, whispers rippling through the room. Kevin faltered, his smile tightening. Yes, question from the floor? Hi, Kevin, Michael said, his voice steady, amplified for all to hear. Great presentation. One thing, though, that in-house framework? It's mine. Built on my personal laptop, off company time. I've got the logs to prove it, and Horizon Dynamics has exclusive rights as of last night. The room went silent, then erupted in murmurs. Kevin's face drained of color. That's nonsense, Mike. You're upset, I get it, but upset. Michael cut in, holding up the USB drive. I've got more than feelings. Emails between you and Emily, planning to steal my work. Bank records showing $50,000 siphoned to a joint account. Should I keep going? He plugged the drive into the Podium laptop, a move Lisa had rigged access for, and projected the files. Kevin's smug emails with Emily filled the screen, followed by transaction logs. Gasps echoed. A board member in the front row stood, red-faced. Russell, what the hell is this? Kevin stammered. This is a setup. He's lying. No setup, Michael said. Just truth. Oh, and my team? They're done here. We're all joining Horizon. He nodded to his engineers, who stood in unison, their resignation badges dangling like medals. The crowd buzzed as Nadia Patel strode in, flanked by 2 lawyers. TechPulse can confirm with our legal team, she announced. Jenkins' IP is ours. Any use of it now is infringement. We'll see you in court if needed. Her smile was ice cold, aimed at Kevin. Security escorted a sputtering Kevin off stage as reporters swarmed, cameras flashing. Michael caught Emily in the audience, her face a mask of shock. She'd slipped in late, likely expecting to bask in Kevin's triumph. Now she bolted for the exit, but Michael intercepted her near the doors. "Michael, she started, eyes wide. "Save it," he snapped. "You picked him. You picked this. Enjoy the fallout." She flinched, then fled. By noon, Horizon's press release hit. Horizon Dynamics acquires revolutionary framework, welcomes creator Michael Jenkins. TechPulse stock tanked 15% in an hour. Investors panicking as tweets flew. Hashtag TechPulse scandal. Kevin and Emily's names trended, tied to fraud allegations now under investigation. Lisa's files had reached the SEC. Back at Tom's, Michael watched the chaos unfold on his phone. His team texted, "Nailed it, boss. When do we start?" Nadia called, her voice crisp. "Brilliant show. Legals handling the infringement threats. You're a star now, own it." He exhaled, the weight of betrayal lifting, replaced by something fiercer, victory. Emily and Kevin hadn't just lost. They'd been exposed, humiliated, and left scrambling. The conference hall's stunned silence replayed in his mind, sweeter than any apology. This wasn't the end. It was his beginning. 3 weeks after the TechPulse conference implosion, Michael stood on the porch of his Capitol Hill house, keys jangling in his hand. The divorce had finalized fast. Emily, desperate to distance herself from the scandal, had settled for far less than she'd demanded. The house was his again, every hardwood plank and window frame a reminder of what he'd fought to reclaim. Inside, the silence felt different now, not empty, but earned. He set his laptop on the kitchen island, a new Horizon Dynamics logo gleaming on the lid, and smiled. This was home, and he was back. The fallout had been swift and brutal. TechPulse stock plummeted 30% in days. Clients jumping ship as the hashtag TechPulse scandal hashtag racked up millions of views. Kevin faced an SEC investigation for embezzlement, his $50,000 side account frozen. Last Michael heard, he'd been fired and was scrambling for a lawyer. Emily, named in the fraud probe, lost her cushy consultant gig before it started. She texted him once a week, "Can we talk?" He'd deleted it without replying. Actions had consequences. She'd learned that the hard way. Michael's phone buzzed with a news alert. TechPulse appoints interim CEO, vows transparency after IP fiasco. Too late. Horizon Dynamics had already rolled out a beta of his framework, snagging 2 major contracts TechPulse lost. His team, 5 engineers who'd walked out with him, started Monday. Their new office, a sleek space in Bellevue with lake views and a vibe TechPulse never had. Respect. They texted him a group selfie that morning, grinning with coffee cups raised. To the boss who fought for us. He wasn't alone in victory. Lisa Carter, his hacker ally, had leveraged her role in the takedown into a security consultant gig with Horizon. Her name now whispered in tech circles with awe. Tom, ever the loyal friend, got a promotion at his firm after tipping Michael off. Turns out, his IT buddies' chatter had sparked it all. They'd celebrated over beers last night, Tom clapping him on the back. "You're a legend, man." Kevin's toast. Friday evening, Michael met Nadia Patel at Horizon's rooftop lounge, the Seattle skyline twinkling below. She handed him a tablet with early performance stats. His framework boosted efficiency by 45%, beating projections. "You've changed the game," she said, her tone warm but businesslike. "Stock's up 18%. Investors want you at the next shareholder meeting." "Appreciate it," he replied, sipping a soda. Bourbon was off the menu, a nod to cutting Kevin's smug habits from his life. But it's not just about the win. It's about being seen. Nadia nodded. "You were invisible at TechPulse. Now you're the face of this. Own it." He did. Monday, he led his first team meeting at Horizon, outlining a roadmap for the framework's next phase. Ideas flowed, untainted by corporate egos or stolen credit. Anita, one of his engineers, grinned after. "This is what it should have been all along." He agreed. Value mattered here. A week later, an envelope arrived, an invite to speak at a Tech Innovator Summit. Topic? Protecting your work. Lessons from a betrayal. He'd say yes, not to gloat, but to warn others. Document everything. Trust your gut. Fight for what's yours. Emily and Kevin's greed had cost them. His vigilance had saved him. That night, he stood at his living room window, the city lights reflecting off the glass. His phone lit up, Emily again, a voicemail this time. He played it curious. Her voice cracked. "Michael, I'm sorry. I messed up. Can we meet?" He deleted it mid-sentence. Sorry didn't undo lies. She'd made her bed, let her lie in it. By month's end, Horizon's valuation edged past TechPulse, a quiet triumph. Michael hung the Hawaii honeymoon photo back up not for nostalgia, but as a reminder. He'd survived worse than Emily's betrayal. At 35, he wasn't starting over. He was starting better. The house hummed with new purpose, his team thrived, and his name was on the tech that shaped the future. Justice wasn't loud. It was this: living well, on his terms, while the guilty paid their price.